play with the cameras ever so slightly, and we're finally live. Move into a bit of the sharing opportunity this night now, where I can share the stream around, make sure everyone is now familiar with what's going on, what's happening. The fact that we are live again with RaceOnOz Sim Racing. Super excited to be back, of course, this time with the Div 2 boys all around it. This is a very competitive field, a lot of diversity as well on track tonight. Super excited. I think I've said that already. I think I'm going to say it a few times. So we'll start sharing these links around. And everyone coming around now to start their hot laps. JC Blaze first on the scene, the West Australian and the Subaru BRZ GT300 machine. Of course, hailing from the Japanese Super GT series. Does this awesome little sports car. Packing a punch too. It's very pocket rocket-esque. It's not got a lot of top-end poke, but my god, it makes up for it in the corners, and JC Blaze will be giving it some, that's for certain. New kid on the block, as per se. Muzzy hasn't been around all that long himself, but he is driving the brand new 296 GT3. Very cool to see this car out on track. Looks great in the United Arab Emirates sunset as well, of course. Abu Dhabi, well known for its sunsets. Of course, the lights that dazzle the Yas Marina Circuit. We'll see more of those shortly as the darkness descends on us. Another 296 GT3 in behind in Average Dad. Lucky Denver Mint is PSN. And a few technical issues for him coming into the night. Very glad to at least have him here and qualifying now in that Ferrari. And great livery there, actually, sporting the 33, Max Verstappen's number, as it's now been so passionately known. Looking good on circuit. Following him, Kiwi kart racer, one of our regulars now, in another Ferrari. I think that's the flavour of choice for tonight, to be honest. Very popular car. I think everyone's very keen to have it as a part of the field, very keen to have it in the game, and able to be raced, of course. More than likely going to be the car of choice for the next RaceOnOz Sunday League season is the 296. I think you'll get many people complaining about that option. A very cool mid-engined European GT3 car. Brand new, of course, current, up to date, currently racing in all forms of GT3 motorsport around the world. See it in Australia, see it in New Zealand. Saw it over the weekend at this circuit at Abu Dhabi. You see it everywhere. We're going to be seeing it for RaceOnOz next season, more than likely. Muzzy opens the scoring, minute 58 there for Muzzy, before being beaten there by Average Dad, going to a 56.7, so bettering that time. Kiwi slots himself into P3 with a 58.8 there, and I'm loving the addition of the lap times down the leaderboard. Awesome stuff from Polyphony there to be giving us a few little quality of life additions. As Selraf there opens it up for the GT4 cars in the Porsche GT4 Cayman. SR Pubs, we'll get on to Pubs a little bit later, goes in with a 2-minute flat .9. And everyone just starting to settle into their qualifying laps. Of course, quite a long track is the Yas Marina. It's a little bit misleading. I think not too many people realised it was going to be close enough to 2-minute lap times in a GT3 car. But here we are. It's certainly take time to get around here, as we'll go back to SR Pubs. This man has been a bit of a mystery, to be honest. Everyone knew he went off and enlisted in the Navy. We thank him for his service to the Navy and to Australia, and he's back. He is back after a very long absence from RaceOnOz. There were a few people wondering where he was, if he would ever come back, and I think mostly hoping for his safety. But you know what, he is here, he is back, and he is thinking better of a dive down the inside of Selraf there. And there's one of the awkward parts, actually, of having multi-class qualifying, is just trying to find a gap in traffic. It's trying to make sure you're able to do your lap time without impeding the GT4 cars by throwing in a late lunge and without getting in the way of everyone. I think that was just a quick apology or a thank you from Pubs, who actually took a little bit of cooperation from those two guys to work that out on the other end. But he's still up just under 2/10 under his time delta. See how Pubs goes in the remaining 4 minutes of this session. switch over to Lagoon J, who is making his RaceOnOz debut tonight in the number 47 Genesis Group 4. And is trying to be seen from space in that livery. Loving the pink highlights on that Genesis. That is one way to stand out, as I believe we just saw Average Dad go quicker again, now with a 56 flat. He's put in a lot of work to be towards the pointy end of the field tonight. A lot of strategy work, a lot of hot lap qualifying work. He's one determined bugger, knows where he wants to be, doesn't know how to get there yet, but he's certainly putting in the work as Pubs there does go better. 2:02. Back here to Steve Goof, who stepped in last minute as an addition to the field in the Gamesman Aston GT4, as well as room host as well. So a massive thank you to Steve for stepping in, doing that for us. That's massively, massively appreciated there. Steve Goof, always willing to put in the hard yards for the community, has been around a very long time now. Part of the furniture, if you may. A couple of guys in here actually starting to really settle in and yeah, do their time under the RaceOnOz banner. As we'll watch Steve here go quicker, just to a 7.2. Not quite enough to beat Brits, who is the next man going to get a little bit of airtime on the Viper Z YouTube commentary. Gotta keep myself occupied somehow. Brits is actually sporting a Gary Rogers tribute tonight, and of course the horrible news last year that Gary Rogers passed away was a shock to the Australian motorsport community, and not just the Australian motorsport community. I mean, Gary was so influential in world motorsport in general. It was a pretty sore second half of the year to lose not only Gary but Alan Moffat, of course, as well. Two absolute legends of motorsport in a pretty rough way to end the year. Hoping we can start it better than what we ended it. But of course, you know, here under the lights, Abu Dhabi, it may be virtual racing, but the racing itself is very much real. As we'll go back to another man making his RaceOnOz debut in Caledon. And we don't know much about Caledon. He's joined in here in the number 164 McGahn Trophy. Caledon, another one of these guys going for the cornering ability over the straight line speed. So I think this is going to be a bit of a trial by fire for a lot of these guys who you know, haven't really been around RaceOnOz all that much, don't really know who they're racing against or what's going to be going on. So it's going to be very interesting just to see how they fare. Mostly just because they are unknown quantities. I mean, you get so many people who do the daily races who, let's be honest, don't know the difference between the front and the rear of their cars. So it's always a bit of an interesting prospect, not only when you join a community like this, but when someone new joins the community in general. You never quite know what to expect, as we see a little bit of lag there from Blambo, another man making a RaceOnOz debut, and that is some serious lag there actually from Blambo, shaking side to side in the 94 Toyota 86 Group 4. I hope that is just a momentary thing, because that is actually some really substantial lag there from Blambo. Might be worth mentioning something afterwards. Only 30 seconds to go now in qualifying. Average Dad still at the helm in GT3. Of course, this is multi-class though, and we do have a GT4 pole up for grabs, which is currently Lagoon J, who is leading the field by just over 2 seconds. That is a wicked fast time in GT4. I think we're going to be seeing Lagoon right up the pointy end of the field. And of course, always going to be an interesting one when you go through these races. I'm not quite sure where people are going to stack up. Well, this man, I think, is already putting the gauntlet down and saying, well, I'm going to be right near the top. And he's still got one more lap to go. As we see these guys wrapping up their laps now. Lapo there parked outside of turn 3. He has finished his qualifying 7.9. Good enough for, I believe, P6 in class in the Ferrari, sponsored by Gamesman. Nat goes quicker. Nat, who joined quite late, and I think as in the GT3 car. There we go. The 275 Supra jumps up to P5 overall with a 58.4. So great to see Nat join in tonight. As there we go, Social still parked out there. Blunty now on his final lap. Pubs just went quicker with a 58.5. As we see Blunty, I think the last man we haven't spoken about yet in this Gamesman-based Supra. You can see the Toyota Gazoo Racing on the bonnet there. And this was actually a livery he sported last year in the GT World Challenge Series. So this is not a brand new series to Blunty. He does have some experience in this. He's also got some experience racing with some of these guys as he just struggles to pull the car up there for the left-hander in that middle chicane. And it's always a tough braking zone. You're carrying a lot of speed coming down into that corner. Very hard to arrest the speed and get yourself turned in, especially those big sausage curbs on the inside. Very tough to navigate. And he's flirting with his personal best time as well. He may go quicker here. Of course, Sector 3, quite technical and flowing. Very difficult to get the nose in at certain places. As Steve Goof there goes quicker. And that was enough to take him into P2 in class. So it does actually improve. But wow, that gap to Lagoon is pretty substantial. That is one hell of a lap time there from Lagoon J. That is going to take some beating. There's a few more guys coming across the line now. Blambo there with a 7 flat, so Blambo, I believe, moves up as well. And does so into P9, and that's third in class for the Toyota 86, although we may get Blambo to do a reset here, just based on how much that's moving around. And Blunty comes across the line, and does not improve. Actually lost a little bit, 7/10 in that final sector. Blunty lost, so unfortunate for him. And I believe that ends qualifying. So just waiting now on Lapo, Social Shocker, who has parked it up in that gorgeous Ferrari. But congratulations to Average Dad, who takes pole position by 7/10 over the field. And that's a pretty impressive lap in that new Ferrari. Of course, Blaze P2 in the Subaru, followed by Muzzy, the second of the Ferraris. It's a Ferrari lockout for row 2 with Kiwi. Before we get Natalie and Pubs, the third row of GT3 cars. Lagoon, of course, that impressive pole position for GT4. A very, very impressive lap for the newcomer to the series. Steve Goof second in the big, fiery Aston Martin. Blambo and Brits, second row of the grid in GT4. And there we have it. So, of course, with this series, we do actually have manual rolling starts. So we may just... Oh, that's not what I wanted. Get these guys to elect their starting sides. There we have it. So, yep, as you saw there, the pole sitters for each class get to elect their starting sides. And that's because the first lap is a manual formation lap. So we come around very calm, very collected. And then we go racing. And that makes it nice and easy. So both of those guys will be on the left, which means the odds will be on the left and evens on the right. I'll just remind everyone that this is a the manual formation lap. There we go. It is a little bit tricky at first, bit overwhelming, all the rules of the double file manual start. Even just saying it can be a lot, but they have been quite the spectacle, to be honest, and very, very cool to watch in practice. As we'll go again just to the qualifying results. I might screenshot these, in fact. Make sure everyone can see them. There we go. Very cool, very excited 6 GT3s, 8 GT4s for tonight. And on the grid we go, of course, that Arabian sunset radiating off all those cars. Look how good that looks. That is a stunning, stunning view of these cars. As we'll go to all display, show all the data. Don't think anyone's going to be pulling the sweater here. And of course, this will be the start of the formation lap. Hopefully everyone knows what they're doing. Yeah, it looks like everyone's very well behaved, which is nice to see. Very well behaved indeed. Actually, is this well behaved? Does look pretty well behaved, I'd say. Sorry, I've just had to screw with the cameras just to make sure that this is indeed everyone calming down and being in formation. Drop pubs a little bit, that's alright. Flicking through, doing my race admin thing. Everyone looks alright. Denver is absolutely flying, but he's allowed to. He's in a fuel safe mode, I'd say. That is definitely not top speed. Okay, we're going to commit to this now. I'm pretty happy that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Oh, it's always a bit nerve-wracking as a league admin. This looks cool, coming down the back straight into this awesome flowing left-hand corner. And I think Denver's probably going about this the right way, maybe just keeping some heat in the tyres by keeping the pace up, still going relatively fast, and creating that gap to GT4 importantly as well. That's very important to be doing. You see it a lot of times where that gap just doesn't really open up, and when the form-up happens, GT4 are right on top of the GT3 cars, and it's just a little bit awkward for everyone. Here he goes, backing everyone up. And so out of this corner now, should pull over to the left-hand side. And look at this like clockwork. Shame to have lost a couple GT3 cars before this race. This would have been a good field of much bigger than what it is. But here we go, GT3 coming to the final corner to start their race. Average Dad leads us to the field in the Ferrari, and he can go, he's lost the start, he's missed it, he's not done his homework, the pole sitter has been swamped. Oh no, it was said before in the briefing that once the pole sitter reaches the finish line you're able to go, but it looks like everyone's just beaten him to it, and it's JC Blaze who is in the lead now for the GT3 cars, as we'll flick back now to GT4 who are all over the place. Look at that, Selraf and Brits I think it was going side by side into turn 1. Looks like they've all sorted themselves out, but 8 GT4 cars into turn 1, and Blambo still with that lag, which hopefully does calm down over the space of this race. That is quite side to side. Caledon's going to have an eyeful of Red Bull Toyota as we go back here to the GT3 cars coming down the back straight, all very behaved right now. JC Blaze still leading the train with Muzzy in behind. Our Pulsar average dad has made his way back to P3 after that torrid start there from the Ferrari driver. He'll be very unhappy with himself. Of course, maybe the nerves of a first pole position there, as a little bit of nose to tail contact between Natalie and Kiwi Kart Racer. So a little bit there going on between these guys. Toyota into the back of the Ferrari. Luckily no consequences there for the Ferrari driver. Of course, Natalie with tail lights are blazing in her rear view. She's got Pubs for company, who is no stranger to applying pressure. Of course, Pubs in his day, an absolute beast of a driver, someone you did not want behind you. He's very disciplined, very well drilled, and Pubs will be loving being back on track, I'm sure of that. As we see here Lagoon, who of course put a huge gap on the field in qualifying, putting in a statement saying, I shouldn't be in Div 2, I should be in the top room. And you know what, son, there's 45 laps still to prove that. and I think he wants to be doing it as quickly as he can. On the mediums, actually, so Lagoon going with the slightly slower start, trying to go for some longevity. Well, Steve in behind him is on the soft tyre, so Steve going to try and go with our pulse hitter for GT4. Salraf behind also on the mediums, and there's a lot of lag happening back here. That's Blambo, who is all over the place. That is pretty substantial for Blambo, and geez, this is... I've got to say something about this. That is pretty bad from Blambo, unfortunately. And just see him in behind there. I hope that fixes itself. I really do, because it would be a shame to lose him in his first RaceOnOz race. But that is some pretty severe lag there from the Toyota driver. And you just got to hope that these two, Blunty and Social Shocker, bring up the rear of the field. Also, the mediums have not been affected by that lag at all. As we see our Pulsar to average dad there, making a move on the other Ferrari Muzzy, and gets it done into P2. So that was either he got the move done a little bit earlier, or he was just defending there potentially. But into P2 now comes the pole sitter, and making up for lost time. But that's a 2.6 second gap that JC Blaze has put on him. That soft tyre, importantly, underneath the Subaru, definitely coming into play there. So that Subaru is already gripped up in the corners as it is, and soft tyres on top of that. That is going to be some speedy lap times from JC Blaze, the Western Australian, making the most of his time at the front of the field. And Blambo does indeed have a special car. Good evening, Krondorf. I've seen you around the RaceOnOz Discord, actually. Welcome along. Great to have you guys a part of everything, part of the action. And I do hope that Blambo's car, as special as it is, does calm down a little bit, as I don't want him to disconnect. I don't want him to knock anyone else off the road, importantly, as well. As we see here, I believe we've actually had Natalie fall off the back of the field. So Nat's made a mistake somewhere, and I think it was on the last lap, that 2 minute 15 lap time, compared to the 1 minute 57 that average dad is doing. So Natalie probably going for the learning curve night tonight, I'd say. Probably just wanting to settle in and get some laps under her belt. It's a long race, long enduro, but you can learn a lot in races like this, and you learn a lot about yourself, a lot about how you drive, and importantly, a lot about how you settle in and really find a rhythm in this long stuff, as I'm sure Lagoon will be focusing on right now. That 2.3 second gap definitely in his favour over Steve Goof, who is definitely putting those softs to good use. 3.9 over Selraf, who you got to think is probably a little bit involved in that battle pack just behind him with Brits, Blambo, and I think it was Caledon back in P12, who's still got that face full of special car, as Krondorf very elegantly put it. And Caledon going to have to be very careful about where he makes his overtakes, of course, there with Blambo running slightly wide through the hairpin. Never not wide enough quite to lose a position. All the GT4 cars there in a very, very tidy line. And one thing you got to remember as well with these races is that traffic does play a part. So of course the GT3 cars, naturally with that advantage that they have over the GT4 cars, they'll come around, they will do some lapping. It's important that the GT4 cars hold their line, don't do anything out of the ordinary. It's up to the GT3 cars to use their superior machinery to get around and navigate quickly and safely. And so the stewards will be keeping an eye on that. They'll be watching to make sure that these GT3 guys are keeping it clean and making it very easy for everyone. As we see here, JC just extending that lead ever so slightly out to 2.9 now. So a couple of tenths on that lap. 57.4 last time for average dad versus a 57.2 for JC Blaze. That's pretty impressive still from average dad. Definitely on the money here, at least, to try and get some track position back later on. Of course, running the slower tyre in that first stint, and you can see he's not really losing much time. A little bit lost to JC Blaze and the twisty stuff, of course. That 296, a little bit better in the straights than what the BRZ GT300 will be. But the BRZ, oh my gosh, in the corners, absolute rocket. You see these three Ferraris almost teaming up now, and I don't think Muzzy's quite close enough to be getting the slipstream benefits from Average Dad, but definitely still holding on to that podium position over Kiwi kart racer, who is actually, I've just noticed, looking after his tyres a little bit better than the two guys in front of him. So potentially playing the long game, making the most out of that rear-engined layout in the Ferrari. Of course, just a slightly different weight distribution in that thing. Potentially helps a little bit with the tyre life. And Pubs here going for the extreme long stint here, racing hards underneath the M6 GT3, so he'll be swinging into it slowly. Not actually sure how long Pubs has been back on the game for. Of course, for those following those a little bit more familiar with RaceOnOz, you'll know that Pubs actually was away for 5 years without touching a sim rig, I believe. So it's been a little bit on the sidelines for Pubs as he served his country very valiantly. And again, massive love, respect and props to Pubs for spinning out under the hotel. And that famous M6 GT3 turbo lag coming to bite him there. And welcome back to Gran Turismo, Pubs. Just see if we did catch a replay of that. As underneath on board. And there it was, right in the turbo lag section. And it was, Pubs just making a slight mistake. And ever so closer now to Natalie. Krondorf, I don't know what I was saying actually. I think I was mentioning how good of a driver Pubs was before I gave him the commentator's curse. So apologies to him for that one. I hope he doesn't watch it back and see that I really cursed him on that one. So we'll gloss over that and turn our heads towards the lead battle that's actually closed up. Now that's substantially closer than what it was last lap. You can see in the lap times, Blaze lost just over a second that last lap compared to Average Dad. So Blaze, some mistake somewhere, can't see the sector times, but he's now got Ferrari all over his tail. That's actually just opened up a little bit. Average Dad running a little bit deep into that chicane. And of course, so important to get that chicane right. Sets you up all the way down this back straight. And how good to see the top 4 very, very close together. Of course, a 90-minute race, this one. This is not for beginners. Although there are plenty of beginners in this race. Props to those guys just throwing caution to the wind and going for it. Blaze certainly wouldn't consider himself a rookie. He has been around RaceOnOz now for a few months. Was part of our Motorsport Australia series in Div 2. Loved every second of it. And whilst it was a trial by fire in the series that was won by James Shelley Robbins Snorksel, as he is so commonly known, he did learn a lot. He found a lot on circuit, found a lot of pace, figured out a lot of things about how to drive, just how to navigate, and importantly, what the guys around him are like. That definitely adds up over time, just how you can go door to door with guys, what you can expect of them, and it really does come into effect as Blaze there, just running out onto that AstroTurf, and I believe Average Dad in the Ferrari did the exact same thing. These guys, I think, the changeover for tyres has probably happened already. Of course, that soft tyre underneath the Subaru probably dying out already as well. The medium probably just coming into its own. Of course, there is a nice little equilibrium between where the mediums die off and where the fuel comes down, where you do start finding pace, really locking in. And Blaze there going on the defense. He doesn't want slipstream going towards that big burly Ferrari. And you know what? I think if I was in a car as slow in a straight line as the BRZ, I'd probably be doing the same thing as Blaze there, going deep. Can't afford that right now. And look who is here. Average Dad all over the tail now. And I think this is going to be a fight all the way as we go on board the hamburger cam of the Ferrari. Is he close enough for a dive into the left-hander? I think he's a little far back. Blaze not taking any chances, hugs the inside and should have enough grip just to hold on through this left-hander now. So Blaze holds on, still in the lead of the 90-minute Abu Dhabi Enduro for the RaceOnOz Imitation Games GT World Challenge Div 2. Doesn't that roll off the tongue? And these two going to be making a battle of it very soon. I think Blaze just stretching the legs now in the twistier section where he knows he can find that time over the Ferrari, using all the track out there. As we see this cockpit now inside the Ferrari. God, isn't the detail gorgeous on this? if this were my office every day, I would not want to leave work. Don't know about you guys. Very, very cool view from the inside of the 296 GT3, chasing down the Subaru BRZ GT300 around Abu Dhabi, Yas Marina Circuit, under lights, of course. The sun is setting, and these guys are nice and close. Couldn't quite throw a blanket over them unless you found one big enough. And Average Dad applying all the pressure. He's definitely strong in sectors 1 and 2, puts the pressure on, asks a lot of Blaze, who of course does have that horsepower deficit. He's down on power, doesn't quite have the legs that Average Dad does. And I'll tell you what as well, he is using the fuel in that BRZ. That's going to hurt him in the pit stops. That's going to hurt him big time in the pit stops. Not sure what the strategy is going to pan out being so far. Haven't had a lot of time to think about it, to be honest. There's been enough action on track. Been able to keep an eye on it. Watch these battles ebb and flow as we once again keep an eye on this lead battle. Both these cars running Dunlop tyres, of course. Dunlop, a tyre supplier to Gran Turismo and the main tyre sponsor for the Gran Turismo World Series. Of course, our love to those guys for supporting sim racing. As Blaze hangs on one more time through the long left-hander, as Muzzy and Kiwi now getting close. These guys both in Ferraris, 3 Ferrari GT3s in the field, running 2nd, 3rd and 4th right now. You can just see Average Dad, corner of your screen, going underneath the lit-up purple hotel. Isn't that glorious? All of those lights reflecting off the 45 entry of Muzzy, and turned to blue already. That is a stunning visual to have over the top of you. I do not know how these guys are focusing right now. Is Kiwi, there goes deep, and he is putting the pressure on Muzzy now. These two Kiwis fighting for supremacy. It's two Australians at the top as Blaze goes defensive there into turn 1. I just saw it at the top of the screen, didn't want to miss out, as Average Dad's all over him now. Blaze has got his work cut out for him. I think the tyres on that BRZ are saying no mas por favor. And please don't criticise the accent or the words. I'm not fluent in Spanish, as Average Dad says, I don't care about your Spanish, I want first. And he is putting the pressure on. Great exit there from Average Dad. We'll go back on board with him inside the cockpit as we go to try and take this position off JC Blaze. Short shifting there in the slipstream, so trying to make a little bit more gain. Is he going to pop out late in the braking zone? He doesn't, so he's gone for the lift off. And he's just biding his time. We're only 17 minutes into this one. We know there is a long, long way to go. And Average Dad knows that too. I think he's playing the fuel save strat, to be honest with you guys. He does not want to pull out of this slipstream right now. That's a huge fuel save, actually. On board with the Ferrari, that is so obvious just how much fuel he is saving. But he's got a lot of pace over Blaze as he goes to sail around the outside. Is he going to do it? Surely not there. I mean, that corner, it's very possible to go around the outside of your opponent. He's looking around the outside again of the sweeping corners here. It doesn't quite get it done. Average Dad being very patient and very courteous. There is Blaze, steps wide once again. And you know what? This is inviting 3rd and 4th to the party, as these guys are putting on a show at the front right now. It's making me forget all about GT4, who I must remember are a class in this race, with Lagoon J absolutely extending the lead right now. 5 seconds to the good over Steve Goof, who I can only assume, and very rightly so, is on very second-hand soft tyres. He's got a lead over Selraf as well, just under 2 seconds. Selraf, who has definitely been using the medium to his advantage, who is just slightly ahead of Caledon now, 3.5 seconds. Caledon's looking after those soft tyres, actually, so that lightened chassis of the McGahn Trophy, as we go back, to Average Dad, who has now gotten the move done. So you watch a lead battle for so long and then you just miss the actual overtake for the lead. That is peak race streaming from me. We'll see if we can catch it on the replay. Average Dad, who was already ahead by the time we came past the main straight. So Average Dad takes the lead back to where he started after just under 20 minutes. And I'm sure he can put his head down now, get to work and try and build a lead. I'm not sure what he's going to do strategy-wise. I mean, with that sort of fuel saving, potentially going for the 2-stop I didn't think a 3-stop was really a viable option. Maybe even a 1-stop, given he started on the mediums. Could be a move to the hards. Unless he wants to go for some shorter Hail Mary stints at the end on the soft tyre. So, yeah, could be an interesting one to watch here for Average Dad, who holds track position now over the field for the first time since that race start. With JC Blaze now starting to lose ground on him and scrubbing wide into the marbles he goes. That Ferrari behind him, car 45, Muzzy, I think will be licking his lips. I think there's a second place in his future. Could move to a Ferrari 1-2-3 before very long. Because I think JC Blaze surely needs to be thinking about a pit stop before long. As that BRZ is good on its tyres, but it's not going to last the whole race. He really needs to think about moving on. Getting on. Oh, he's spun there actually. JC Blaze, and he's being collected by Kiwi. JC Blaze, I was saying he probably needed to get off that tyre, but it was too late. Huge mistake underneath the hotel, and he's copped a penalty for his troubles too. Let's see what happened here as he swung it into the double right-hander. It was all going so well. He had a little bit of a gap over Muzzy. Still online here, and he's run a little bit wide there, out wide, just loses it under the tunnel. Muzzy did so well to avoid him, but Kiwi had nowhere to go. And that's super unfortunate there for Kiwi Kart Racer, who was just caught up in an unfortunate incident there. Not much he could have done to avoid that one. We'll see it from his onboard camera here, following Blaze and Muzzy as we go under the tunnel here. And you can see it there, Blaze just stepping wide. And oh, just at the wrong time. It all happened for Kiwi Kart Racer. And that's so unfortunate there. Didn't cost him too much time, luckily. And as Condorf does say, that will buff out. It absolutely will. We only run the light damage here because unfortunately this is sim racing. It's a little bit unpredictable and weird stuff does happen. So these guys getting a little bit of a leg up on that one, and Kiwi lives to fight another day. So too does JC Blaze, who does have to serve this second penalty. And it does actually look like we are now starting to get into our lapped traffic as Kiwi there. Oh, thinking about a move on Muzzy. It was only less than a lap ago. He was into the side of Muzzy. Oh, not Muzzy, I beg your pardon. Into the side of JC Blaze. But yeah, wants to go for it. Did mention though that, yeah, we are now starting to see cars lapped. So, Social Shocker, 30 seconds ahead of Blunty, and Caledon now in. So that's actually, Caledon and Steve's, the two soft runners, first in. I think it's a little bit early, if you ask me, for Caledon. Who, that last lap, I mean, that was an 8.3 on lap 9, fastest lap on lap 8. That seems really early for a McGahn Trophy to be getting rid of soft tyres. Did a really good fuel save though. Let's see what he does here, whether it's another set of the soft tyres. As he pulls out into this, well, actually, we'll watch this for the first time on RaceOnOz history. Under the tunnel, under the lights of Yas Marina Circuit, he comes out, and that McGahn Trophy should be released now. And out it comes through pit exit onto the medium tyre. So he's served his compulsory pit stop already, changed the tyres, and on his bike he goes. Caledon out into P13. Blunty still bringing up the rear of the field. And as you see, he is now being lapped by the GT3 cars as Blunty. Oh, huge moment on the curbs there for Blunty. And he's got to be careful here not to get in Natalie's way. Does very well to get over the other side of the track. Let's see if we can catch a view of that. Maybe from Pubs' perspective here as he's following him into the corner. Blunty out wide. And it was just a moment on the curbs there for Blunty, and you saw him into the wall. And fortunate not to get in Natalie's way. Continues on, lives to fight another day in that Gazoo Racing Supra. So Blunty not all out, not all over. Just needs a little bit of chamois and some tender love and care. As we go back to the front of the field now, Average Dad still with this lead and starting to dice through the GT4 cars. Always a very difficult time trying to come through these slower cars who can find it difficult to see you, especially with these closing speeds, these high-speed corners in particular. The GT3 cars really leaning on that added downforce that they've got over their GT4 counterparts. And in the background there, I believe that is Brits and Blambo now very close. And Blambo actually last lap setting his fastest lap of the race, so starting to find some time is the man with the special car. still shaking side to side. Brit's actually with a little bit of movement as well, so hopefully that's something that they share. Not something that's going to throw either one of them off. As look at this, 2 Ferraris coming through, Muzzy and Kiwi down the front straight. They're going to be coming across this battle for ninth very, very shortly. Of course, these two getting blue flags. Can't turn that off in game, but they don't need to adhere to blue flags. They actually need to wait for the GT3 cars to make these passes cleanly and make them themselves as we pan back here to these GT3 cars. Go on board now with Kiwi, who has shown some pace over Muzzy in these last few laps, and that actually looked like a move for position there. For Brits, no, I beg your pardon, he was actually already ahead of Blambo. Very tough actually to judge what exactly is going on up there with the lag that we see from Blambo. Very unfortunate to see him jittering around like that. Hopefully that's just a one race thing, as Kiwi there navigating I don't even know who, because I have lost the cameras somehow. The Brits there being passed by Muzzy. Kiwi getting caught behind Brits though, losing crucial time behind the Lexus, and that was actually a fair chunk of time that Kiwi lost just by being courteous actually. I think Muzzy just got the timing a little bit better, was able to slot on through without losing anyone time, and Kiwi 1.3 seconds now behind out of nowhere, and that'll frustrate him slightly. Of course, we say it a lot, it is a 90-minute race. We're not even a third of the way in yet. It feels like we've been going forever. Yes, these guys now settling in very nicely on their medium tyres, not even halfway worn. And same can be pretty much said for Muzzy as well. Both of these Kiwis doing very well on their tyres indeed, and really sharing the same bit of road for a long time now. As we flick back to Pubs, who was also navigating the multi-class traffic, and this is something actually that's probably new to Pubs. I don't believe he did all that much multi-class racing back on GT Sport, as we see there on the left-hand side timing tower. Kiwi kart racer in the pits now from P3, brings in the Ferrari on the mediums. Just under half fuel left, more than likely going to be a stop for soft tyres, I would predict actually. As Pubs there overtaking Caledon down the main straight. Caledon very kind indeed, just to sidestep him and give him the easy way through. Doesn't need to do that, of course. Caledon is well within his rights just to hold line and let these guys figure it out themselves. As there we go, kart racer on cue, out on the hard tyres in that Maha Ferrari GT3. Doesn't that look great under the lights? That is a stunning blue under the lights of Yas Marina Circuit. And Natalie also in the pits, going from the mediums to, I believe, a second stint on the mediums. So Natalie going for those two roughly even-sized stints now. Maybe trying to make up some time that way before she goes for a shorter stint on the softs, but no, I'm wrong. Does go to the hard tyre. So Natalie there going for a longer middle stint. That as well. JC Blaze did also make a pit stop. Has ended up 12 seconds behind Kiwi kart racer, although on the medium tyre now is Blaze, so he does hold a tyre advantage over Kiwi, and more than likely going to chase him down as he can. Pubs has made some really good ground on this hard tyre actually. I almost wonder if Pubs is going to commit to this one stop. Neither of the two cars ahead of him pitted yet. Average Dad, you can see, continuing around turn one, not making a stop, and nor is Muzzy. So really stretching out that medium now. And you can see dipping under halfway, especially that front left tyre. 159 flats there for the man in P2. The man in P1 stuck in behind the GT4 leader, Lagoon J. Pardon me, a bit of a lump in my throat. This is difficult, this solo comp stuff. Many of you may know Trevor Byers, Kid Byers, of course, the voice of RaceOnOz, Motorsport Australia Esports Championship. And he makes it look easy when he does all the solo comp stuff. Not that he had to do it very often. Of course, had either myself or Isaac Fogarty for company. Or, of course, Savage Duck on occasion as well. Very impressive skill indeed. I am not coping whatsoever. As we flick again to Lagoon, who is just extending that margin lap on lap over the field. This is an absolute statement for Lagoon, who is, of course, running the Genesis Group 4, one of the newer cars to the series. Not brand new, mind you, but one of the newer GT4 cars, especially compared to the Cayman GT4, which we did see in GT Sport. So this thing's been around a while. We've certainly seen it in a few titles now, this being its second on GT7. And Selraf actually stepping away from his traditional blue and white liveries. Of course, Selraf, the team captain for Selby Acoustics Racing, as you can see, sported on the nose. And very proud captain at that. He's a fantastic bloke. Loves being about the community, loves these sorts of races and learning from them as well, like so many people do. Another man who's been around the community, Brits Lightning 55 in that Lexus, of course, the Gary Rogers Motorsport tribute. And Valvoline all over the side of it. That is very tasteful indeed. Love the silver metallic at the back as he's rounded up by Pubs. Of course, is playing the long game in that M6 GT3. Interestingly as well, with Pubs running the sprint model version of that M6. Not that it's going to matter when he's out that wide, as he does shuffle wide there through that right-hander at the end of a very difficult braking zone. ABS working overtime in these cars to make sure they can actually pull up for that corner. Very, very difficult to sling a car in there at just over 220 kilometers an hour and pull it up on the apex on a dime. Something Brits probably found a little bit easier as he watched that man sail off ahead of him. And back to Social Shocker here, who has picked up a few spots now thanks to the pit stops of others, and maybe this was his plan all along, as he sees another compatriot Ferrari go by him in Kiwi Kart Racer. Social Shocker, of course, Lapo, as he's known around the community. Sponsored by Gamesman tonight. That white, black and red livery becomes so synonymous with Gamesman Racing Team liveries. And quite an outdated model of car now, I must say. Yeah, been around a while. Of course, it was a Ruse season car about 4 or 5 years ago now, actually, so it's been a while since we've seen this thing run regularly. Social Shocker picking it for tonight and committing to it for the 90-minute event. Hopefully it bodes well in the long run. Stepping back here to Steve Goof, who was running second early on in this race, started on the soft tyre. Pardon me. And that's a yellow flag ahead. Don't know what that's for. And I believe it was Kiwi Kart Racer, actually, who probably had an off somewhere in the background. See if we can catch it on the replays. And Kiwi here coming over the second part of the chicane and drops the rear of the Ferrari to the 98. Not going for a full rotation, but struggling to get back up to speed there. Those turbos not exactly tuned in for that crawl up from 0 kilometers an hour. Luckily, don't believe he stopped entirely, but that time loss to JC Blaze is substantial. And Pubs as well, 15 seconds now to the good over the Ferrari. The Beamer really cementing himself in the top 3. This is going to be an interesting podium to keep an eye on. Not really sure which way this is going to go. So many different strategies at work, as Blaze now can see his target. That medium tyre is going to be lit up underneath him, and hopefully not working too hard. The Subaru, of course, very kind on its tyres. Good evening, Ben. Hello, mate. Good to see you. And, mate, the replay feature is an absolute godsend on this game. Super, super cool. It's actually a shame not a lot of guys utilise it, as Blaze here going for the dive on Shocker, and that's a little bit cheeky, but Shocker pretty kind on the outside. Nothing to real play for right now for Lapo. It's just going to be nice and patient. Let Blaze go on about his business. But yeah, replays, just one of those things. I'm not even sure that the awareness is there. Don't know that people know that they're in the game, or that they've been in the game since 2017, or, you know, it's not a new thing. It's pretty crazy that, you know, so many experienced Gran Turismo streamers don't use the replay function. We see it all the time in the Gran Turismo World Series in particular. Of course, Jimmy Broadbent, Steve Alvarez Brown, that man whose name I've actually forgotten. Not Steve Brooks. Tom Brooks, that's it. I think actually does some of the Formula E commentary at the moment. So, but if you guys ever want to see me do some Formula E commentary, feel free to put me their way. I'm sure I could talk louder than the Formula E sound, so I'd find a way. And Blambo there actually finally dropping out of the lobby, so hopefully that wasn't a disconnect for him. Really unfortunate either way to lose Blambo from the lobby in his first ever RaceOnOz event. Pardon me. As we look at Blunty here, bringing up the tail of the field, the GT4 field. And Snorksel, even though he's not racing tonight, is spending his moving day watching sim racing. Good evening, Snorksel. And a massive shame that you couldn't make it tonight, mate. Big shame. But yeah, the race is going very well. We've got some tight racing up the top. Average Dad has put in a lot of work in this new Ferrari GT3 to be up the top. Of course, Div 4 reigning supreme in Room 2. Very cool to see. Muzzy right now in P2. Of course, these two boys haven't stopped. Neither has Pubs, who I actually think made a mistake somewhere there. Less so, I don't think he made a mistake. I think that time's just starting to drop off on the hard tyre. Pubs definitely going for the long game. Hasn't pitted yet. None of this top three is pitted. Average Dad and Muzzy top two. Starting on the mediums, Pubs on the hards, going for the very long game. Running out of fuel though. Muzzy with slightly less fuel, and Average Dad with an ultimate fuel save. This has been a very, very good drive from him. It's going to take some beating next round, assuming he does it. JC Blaze gave him hell early on. Of course, we did see JC Blaze leading for the first 15 minutes of this race after a bit of a whoopsie on the start from Average Dad. Went from pole position all the way back to dead, stone cold, motherless last. After what seemed he just missed the start. Of course, the new regs show that pole sitters can go the moment they hit the finish line for the lap. Oh god, I thought Blaze was going around there. It was going to be a picture perfect copy of what Kiwi did only a few laps ago. Gathered it up though, and on his bike he goes. Natalie bringing up the rear of the GT3 field on the hard tyre, going for the long stint. And she's had a little bit of trouble keeping up with this caliber of driver in front of her, but learning a lot in the back is Natalie, especially in a car as hard to drive as the Supra. So a lot of respect there, a lot of props to how she's going about her business. It's all Lagoon J though in GT4, who has just been a standout performer so far. Nearly 10 seconds to the good over Selraf. The times are starting to drop off a little bit. I think that's 2-minute 10s last two times from the man of the Genesis. Selraf just finding a little bit of time over him, especially on lap 15. And these two guys, Lagoon's led from lap 1. It was a very dominant pole position from Lagoon, nearly over 2 seconds I believe, pole position over this man. Steve 73 Goof repping the Gamesman livery Aston Martin GT4 and making some good ground now on fresher tyres. Has stopped as Steve Goof and starting to pick his way through the field. His next target, Brits Lightning, has been very patient indeed and played his time well in that Gary Rogers liveried Lexus RCF. And towards the rear of the field we've still got Caledon and Blunty on circuit, although not particularly close. 42 seconds separating 12th and 13th overall. As I believe we're going to be taking a short break here, and we might just go on board with Average Dad and let that happen. I will reply to Ben though. I'd love to get back on to do some GT races. PS5 doesn't like the VRS wheel, doesn't like USB ports. That's a great point actually, the VRS stuff. You know, amazing wheel. I was very fortunate to be sponsored by VRS for quite a few years through my links with Satellite Racing. Yeah, great guys through there. Awesome product, one of the best on the market. You know, it's probably quite a diluted market these days. You've got so many different options, especially with Mozart really picking up what they're doing and being somewhat compatible with the PlayStation stuff as well through the sim hubs or whatever they're called. I actually don't know the exact name for them, but the USB hubs that you can plug in and make your direct drives compatible for PlayStation are absolute godsend, and I see a lot of people using them, a lot of people getting the best out of them. But yeah, VRS just lacking in that department a little bit, which is a shame because the drive hub, thank you Krondorf, thank you very much. Actually it was you that was talking about that earlier today, which is what made me think about that. But it's a shame because VRS, absolute top of the market in terms of wheel feel. What they do, they are stellar. We're definitely lacking a little bit on the wheel front when it comes to Gran Turismo, and in particular just console. I think we're just a little bit behind the 8 ball. The direct drive stuff is starting to come out, starting to get good. I think Logitech and Fanatec in particular with the DD stuff are really probably ahead of the curve. Thrustmaster a bit behind the curve. Of course, they were the official wheel of Gran Turismo for quite a few years. There was a few more, is there? Resolution 2. Okay. God, I'm going to have to do my research on these. I am actually looking at potentially upgrading to something that can run PC and console. Wouldn't mind doing some of those iRacing endurance events. Those look absolutely wicked. Need Gran Turismo to come out on PC. God, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, port across to PC, especially if it was officially supported. I'd be all over that. I think there's just so many things that GT does right. There's a lot of things it does better than probably any other sim racing game on the market. I think the weather system in GT is just phenomenal. If you've not ever felt the cars in the wet in GT7, it's well worth it. The way that the puddles, you know, really work with the track, and iRacing's quite good at it too, but it's definitely got a lot of downfalls. But the weather system on GT7 is honestly second to none. Stunning, incredible. The tyre model itself is probably slept on. It's quite good, the way that the heat works and whatnot. It's probably a little bit underdeveloped given the absolute drive from PD, just to make sure that this game's still playable on a controller. So probably just at the trade-off of accessibility, it does lose a little bit of that ultimate feel, as I did see Muzzy peel in from P2 there. So the second Ferrari there in the pits. And Kiwi's got JC Blaze all over him now. And I've got to wonder actually if Muzzy's going to be very close to these guys. Of course, Kiwi and Muzzy incredibly close when we saw them last. Muzzy just navigating under the pits. This is going to be quite close. I think Muzzy's going to have him by a second or two. Are we going to see that Ferrari? There it is on the inside. And it's going to be 3 cars all on top of each other into this first sector as here we go. Battle is back on between Muzzy and Kiwi Kart Racer. JC Blaze wants a part of it as well. He's been the form man the last couple of laps on these rejuvenated tyres. Of course, the Dunlop tyres on that Subaru BRZ. Dunlop's actually on all 3 of these cars, I believe. Muzzy running Dunlops too. So Dunlop in this battle pack. And Kiwi's still got Blaze all over the back of him. We're going to go on board with Blaze here, who of course running that BRZ GT300, I've mentioned it before, is down on power, but my god does he make it up in the corners. You can see they're braking deeper than the Ferrari, making up a lot of ground as Kiwi there wide of the apex, and Muzzy making a mistake ahead as well. Cold tyres, and Blaze is around at the worst time possible. JC Blaze loses all of the time he worked so hard to find, and he watches as the tail lights of the 296s that he worked so hard to catch disappear once again. We'll watch it from the replay cameras. JC Blaze, you saw him deep under brakes at the 150 brake marker, and it was going all so well over the curb. You had to think he was setting up for an overtake and just dropped it on exit before he got to the curb. That's a massive shame there for JC Blaze. You said it, Snorksel, it is so difficult to get the power down there, let alone in a BRZ GT300. Turbo lag is a B. As Pubs now making his pit stop from P2. And that was a commendable effort from Pubs, who went a very long way on the hard tyre through to the conclusion of lap 21. I was sidetracked there because Muzzy out of the pits really lit up that battle between these 3 cars, and it's still pretty close, so we're going to keep an eye on it. Sorry, Ben, we're kind of halfway through a conversation there. But yeah, absolutely. I did see RaceOnOz running at the Daytona 24-hour coming up this weekend, I think you said. That's super cool. We'll be keeping an eye on it, as I always do. Love watching the sim racing stuff. Love keeping an eye on how you boys on iRacing go. At the end of the day, it's all one community, whether it's GT, ACC, LMU, iRacing. Yep, it was... Oh no, Kiwi in the background! Kiwi! Another issue with the power, and it's someone else who has come a cropper, being a victim of their own right foot. And that's a massive shame there for Kiwi, who was doing so well there, following in behind Muzzy. You had to think he probably had the benefit of the doubt there, whether he was going to get an overtake done. He went a little bit shallow, actually. Maybe thrown off by Muzzy. And oh, he did so well to catch that. Actually, he did very well to catch that. It was very early on that he knew that that car was going to go round. As we see another yellow flag here. What's happened? And it's Blunty, I think, who's had another unfortunate off. Again, we might see if we can just catch what happened to Blunty. And, oh, it's been a while. So another one lost it on exit of this chicane and parked in a precarious place as well. He's gassed it. You can see he just wants... Oh, that's awkward. Oh, that's very awkward for Blunty, who just trying to stay out of the way, backs the Supra into the Armco. And that is one way to keep it out of the way, I must say. He's just got to be careful here. Pubs now trying to make his way through. And you can see here just how hard it is now for these GT3 drivers to make a decision with the GT4 cars the way they're going. Of course, it is said in the regs briefing beforehand, the GT4 are to hold their line. Don't get out of the way. Don't do that. Much easier to just hold your line, make the GT3 cars use their grip, use that extra performance, the extra power that they've got, and so much more downforce. The front and rear wings in particular, massive compared to the GT4 cars. You can see it as Blunty there in the background peels into the pits, but Lagoon here, just a huge comparison. The rear wing on this thing, absolutely minuscule comparing to what we see. Well, even of its counterpart, the Genesis Group 3, with a huge donk on the rear of it. And I did see before a comment asking, what tyres does Muzzy have on? The Racing Mediums, actually. So yes, the Racing Mediums for Muzzy. And that's actually going to be some nice time that he can find over the field. As Average Dad now, still going on that medium tyre. This is a hell of a stint. Look at the times from him as well, still in the 58s for him. And into the pits actually this lap, 23 laps on the same medium tyre. That is a hell of a stint there for this man, Average Dad, our pole sitter as well, who brings the Ferrari into pit lane. And this is a pretty solid gap now. He's got back to Muzzy. Not sure he's going to relinquish the lead here even. It was a very convincing lead that he had. Shouldn't take that long. You got to think, running a stint this long, I think I've probably answered my own question. Got to be the hard tyre going onto this car. Very tasteful livery there, the 296 GT3, loud and proud in the pit lane. And he's underfueled it slightly, but this is way too much fuel if he's going to be doing two separate soft stints. So you got to say this is a long hard stint coming up for Average Dad. Wants to take it all the way home, and you know what, when you've got a lead as big as this, why not? Because he is the man chasing you. Muzzy, P2, 54 seconds behind before the pit stop. We'll see how this closes in. Look at the gap dropping now, 43, 40, 38, 35, dropping every single second. But you can see there, top right of your screen, Average Dad already onto the back straight, and Muzzy brings it into just under 20 seconds. So 19 seconds is the gap between your first and second place cars. JC Blaze has made his way back to P3, so it's actually worked out for JC Blaze. He has found a nice little spot to do business here. Back on the podium after the very, very unfortunate spin for Kiwi Kart Race, who did very well actually to keep it out of the wall. Keep it mostly pointing the right way. Keeps it out of trouble as well. But might not keep himself away from Pubs, who I think is actually doing a reverse of what Average Dad was doing. So SR Pubs clearly on the money. And if the race leader's doing the strategy that SR Pubs is on, I think he's probably going to pick off a few places coming forward. Look at that last lap time actually, a 57.1. That is just over a tenth off the fastest lap of this race. SR Pubs has really not been in the conversation for most of this race. I think playing the long game though is going to play him in massively. So this M6, this is going to be one to watch. Of course, the man has not seen a sim racing event in over 5 years. This is a first for him. He's purple right now on the race leader. He wants to be back. He wants to make some names for himself and make way, everyone, because Uncle Pubs is back. And he is charging forward in the pack as Natalie here on those hard tyres. Trying to stay consistent. Actually, some very, very convincing lap times mixed in amongst there. That 2-minute flat point 8 would be very, very competitive. The hard tyre, of course, worn hard tyre. And quite convincing, actually, some of these lap times. If the consistency came back a little bit, it'd be quite decent for Natalie and how she's going. And we have actually seen a change for the lead with Steve Goof taking the lead over Lagoon after the pit stop, which means we may see a battle for the lead in GT4 for the first time all race, actually, because Lagoon from the lead has been untouchable. But these medium tyres on the Aston Martin a little bit soft now, a little bit scruffy. Seen better days. Feeling a little bit Pete Murray, as I so affectionately say all the time, to everyone's disapproval. But that's another story, and hopefully one I don't need to tell tonight. And Lagoon's story, you got to wonder what's in it for him right now. You got to think fresh, hard tyres underneath the Genesis. Is this going to be the long stint home? Is this the GT4 version of what we're seeing in GT3 right now? Of course, average dad. And I think Caledon actually just bowing out. Not a massive fan of the multi-class stuff. It can be tough. Not as many cars in your class, naturally, of course, being split between two. The absolute best you're going to get with a streamer is 8 and 7 in each class, held back massively by the limitations of Gran Turismo. Fortunately, this isn't all we do. We run a large amount of racing every single week, Monday through to Sunday. It's always on. Absolutely Krondorf, that will be a pit stop for Steve. So Lagoon probably doesn't even need to fight this all that hard. He's just got to bide his time. If he doesn't get involved in anything, this is probably a pretty simple race win for him, as Caledon there bows out. And again, a bit of a shame. Caledon there making his RaceOnOz debut. Not a big fan of the multi-class stuff. Each to their own. It's certainly not everyone's slice of pie. As we're on board here now with Lagoon J in the slipstream of Steve Goof. Will he go defensive as Lagoon there lifting off early? Just choosing to go safe as Steve. About 4 car widths wide of the apex there. I think really struggling now with the front tyres of that Aston Martin. You can see it absolutely squirming all over the place under power. It's a difficult car to drive, especially when the tyres start to get worn. Just likes to understeer, likes to oversteer, likes to stay unbalanced at the best of times. Lagoon here sizing him up, wondering where he's going to get by him, wondering what is the best way to do this. Keep the lead, not get himself in trouble, and not bring the gap down to this man Selraf, who has been pretty comfortably in and around the podium tonight. And just shuffling out of the way for our race leader here, Average Dad, sneaking down the inside, doing it very convincingly. And everyone staying out of this very, very nicely. It's a very good point, Ben. You know, stuck with this 16-player lobby. We know the GT have the capability to do more. I mean, we've seen more cars on track, of course, in AI lobbies. I believe 16 is exactly what we had in GT Sport, and potentially exactly what we had in GT6, maybe even GT5. So the lack of going forward is frustrating, without a doubt. And the official explanation has been they had to allow room for the limitations of the PS4. So because GT7, of course, was a dual release title, GT7 being PS4 and PS5, the PS4 just didn't have the power to handle much more than 16 in one lobby. And that's at max load, of course. You know, weather absolutely blurring, lights everywhere, cars pinging all over the place. It would have been a lot, I understand, but we definitely see more out of ACC, which you know, does pretty well for itself. It's certainly not the graphical masterpiece that we see from GT7, but ACC does stand up pretty well against the test of time. Sounds are awesome as well, and yeah, it does very well for itself. So would have been awesome to see more. You know, I'd love 20. Just a minimum of 20 would be awesome. That would really liven it up for everyone. Just commit to the fact that you can run multi-class stuff pretty comfortably. Because multi-class stuff is really quite rare still on GT. You don't see it all the time. And the times that you do see it, unfortunately, it ends up like this, where even a lobby close to full with 12 people, I mean, that's 6 in each class. That's very tough to really get into. It's doable, absolutely doable. I mean, we saw it even in the top flight of WEC. Of course, when LMP1 and Hypercar were struggling, we didn't see a lot of cars. And we did manage to see some cool racing, of course, but it is difficult just to really get into it. So, and that's what we're seeing here tonight. A couple of these guys just struggling a little bit with not having a full grid, full contingent of drivers around them. Something that's maybe catching out Lapo a little bit. Social shocker here. Not quite having a shocker, I would say. Only 25 seconds off Brits Lightning ahead of him. And all these guys, very respectable drivers in their own, as Blambo ducks out. And no need to apologise. It is something that happens, unfortunately, with lag. You see it everywhere you go. Sim racing is, unfortunately, very susceptible to latency, packet loss, lag, you name it. It all happens, and it's very hard to completely nullify it. Something that GT servers could potentially benefit from in future, actually, is maybe some work on latency and improving the way it handles packets. As Lapo there cleans up a bollard inside of the final corner, starting lap 26 of this race, as we check in with Blunty, who actually has settled a lot more than what we saw from him couple laps ago. 3 2-minute 12s in a row. That's some really good consistency there for the man in the Supra. Only Supra GT4 in the race. Of course, the other Supra would be this woman right here, Natalie, from Western Australia. And running those 2-minute ones now in the Supra GT3. I think she's found some consistency as well. So maybe the track conditions have just come to these guys a little bit. They're starting to find their time. A bit more consistency coming in. Consistency is even something that this man here is struggling with a little bit. Average Dad, who's now on the hard tyres and just struggling to warm them in a little bit. And that gap has come down considerably, actually. 6 seconds he's lost to Muzzy over the last couple of laps. That may have been a spin somewhere, because these times from Muzzy's aren't incredible, but they're certainly convincing. 57.2 on lap 24 for Muzzy, so he's rocketing forward. JC Blaze here sitting pretty comfortably in the 59s. That is 6 59s in a row, I believe, with a 58 thrown in for good measure. And look at this in front of him as JC Blaze there kicks out the rear of the BRZ and tries to get a move done on Brits. This is awkward. This is very awkward. Gets it done on Brits easy enough and is stuck around the outside of Selraf. And he's going to be able to use the power now of that BRZ, steps on it, gets ahead of these guys, but might have encouraged a bit of a battle here between 9th and 10th, and these guys have been on it all races. Brits trying to go around the outside of turn 1. When have we seen that? And they're still side by side now and flicking it through this corner. You don't usually go side by side there, but these guys hold my beer, says Brits Lightning, and moves up into P9. Don't think this is over though. Selraf here poking a nose into the hairpin. Great overtaking opportunity as Brits goes deep, actually. So Brits thinking he might throw it in behind and give Selraf the opportunity for an over and under. Making time on him. He actually isn't. So not gaining anything. And here come the GT3 guys, because it's now Kiwi and Pubs in behind these guys. And Pubs has been a man on a mission with these lap times. And actually did make a mistake somewhere in lap 24. Lost a lot of ground to Kiwi Car Racer in that moment. He's keeping up with the leader considerably well, actually. Has found a tiny bit of time on average, Dad, in that M6 GT3 car, which is certainly being seen as outdated. A lot of models have come through since then. Its homologation's running out very shortly in the M6 GT3, actually, so it's nice to see it on track, I suppose. But also makes you wonder where on earth is the M4 GT3. Would love to see it in GC7, especially considering we have had an Evo model released from BMW since then. Something we will see on track, of course, very shortly at the Daytona 24 Hour in 2 weeks' time. And of course, in 1 week time on iRacing. Check it out. It'll be all over your YouTube pages as Kiwi Car Racer there picks up a half-second penalty. So track limits rearing up its ugly little head and biting Kiwi Car Racer somewhere he did not want to be bit. And I'll leave that one up to your imagination as JC Blaze now peels into the pits in the STI-sponsored, Selby-supported Subaru BRZ GT300. Less than 2 litres left in the tank. And that's not a percentage, that is indeed litres. So all these cars have a 100-litre fuel tank, give or take, as he fuels it up now. I wonder if this is going to be a short fill, only 17 laps to go. Doesn't need the whole tank in it. And probably mediums to the end, seeing as though we started on the soft tyre. And does actually fill it up all the way, so the BRZ maybe a little bit thirstier than what we've seen from the others as SR Pubs. Oh no! Oh no, he's done it again. Kiwi kart racer in the same place. Oh no. Oh, I don't even want to watch it on replay, but you know what? Oh, how did that happen? And it was Pubs actually in behind, so Pubs going for the move. Down the inside went SR Pubs, and Kiwi kart racer just trying to stay close. Just lights it up in first gear, and there's the lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Keep it in the high gear at all times. There is no reason to keep it in a low gear. Only for rotation do you need those lower gears. First gear at the apex, straight into second before you're even on power. So disappointing on exit of that corner once again for Kiwi kart racer, who surely will learn his lesson after that one. It gives SR Pubs a free pass onto the podium in his return to RaceOnOz. 5 years in the Navy, and back he comes into the race, and off the circuit goes Pubs. Commentator's curse once again for Pubs. For Pubs, I should say. Very true though, Ben. Yes, it does look a lot smoother than it used to. I remember back in the days, GT6, I don't even know if it was netcode, the cars just didn't look right on track. And it's something that they've absolutely worked on, and something that looks so much better. I don't know whether it's the lighting, whether it is the netcode in fact, whether it's just the cars sitting on the road that little bit prettier. But it looks right. I mean, you look at this come down, and other than a tiny bit of netcode wiggle, I mean, that's lovely. It's an exquisite looking game. It honestly does numbers on just about anything else you can see. Maybe modded Assetto Corsa, I would say, is better looking than this. But otherwise, a game straight out of the EB games, or the Gamesman, I should say, and into your console. It's pretty bloody impressive. As Average Dad here, settling into the 58s now. I was picking on him a little bit for his consistency, but I think he's found it. I think he's just settling in now to what he should be doing. Those mid 58s, give or take. Muzzy around the same pace, so these Ferraris have really equalised. On a slightly better tyre actually is Muzzy, so he could catch in theory going forward, but I think Muzzy's probably less aware of what's going on in terms of catching Average Dad. I think he'll be very happy with P2, but I think he'd be more concerned of what's going on behind him, because Pubs, on that tyre, I think he's already proven with his first hard stint, went 24 laps on the hard tyre, I believe. He can go the distance, but will the mediums make it that long for SR Pubs? So of course that front right, look at it already actually, that front right is seeing pain. There's probably some blisters on that, probably some uneven wear, and yeah, definitely starting to really feel not the best for SR Pubs, who, again, you got to wonder, not the most experience on GT7. I mean, how much has he done? How much experience does he have, not only at Yas Marina Circuit, but on GT7 in this car? Of course, the M6 GT3 was present in GT Sport, but very, very different style of driving that you've got to adapt from that game to this game. So lots to learn, lots to do. As Steve Goof there comes in from P2 in GT4, and this is surely going to be one of those last pit stops for Steve Goof from second. Brits Lightning there in P3, comes around the final corner, takes P2 now, so Brits Lightning up into P2, and that could be something he holds on to actually. That medium, again, looking a little worse for wear on the front right tyre, but manageable, definitely manageable for the number 55 entry. Maybe a little bit of rearwards brake bias actually would save his day. Just put the leaning load back on the rear of the car. Of course, I mentioned brake bias. I think I've mentioned it before this race. In Gran Turismo, your brake bias heavily affects the way the car pitches under brakes. And we'll go on board with Brits Lightning just to explain this a little bit more as he heads down this very long first section of back straight. Can you imagine if that chicane was just a slight kink? My God, this should be a long straight. Of course, right now, Brits settling in, nice and comfortable down the back straight here. Your brake balance will play a large part, not only in these longer braking zones here, where he's going to step on it at about 130 metres, and then get onto the apex there nicely. Probably runs it a little bit deeper than he wanted. Does get it back to the second apex very nicely. A rearwards brake balance there will help the nose come in just by naturally locking the rear tyre and putting the load through the rear, so that you're slowing the rear tyre more than you are the front, and that way you basically create a pendulum effect and bring it around that way. Or of course, the other way to do it is by moving your brake balance forwards. This is something that GT can struggle with in the geometry of the car setup, with a more forwards brake bias. You do put a lot more force towards your front tyres. It can struggle actually, especially at those high limit braking areas, to get grip and to turn in. So you've got to be very careful on the brake pedal when you are moving your brake balance further forwards. But you do sometimes benefit from slightly shortened braking zones when you do have the brake balance forwards like that. But you can also, if you do use the brake pedal right, sometimes you can kind of modulate it and just bring the front tyres into the grip window that way. So there's many different ways to do it, and per car it changes. With the RCF GT4, it's actually not something I'm familiar with. But I can see Brits is being pretty smooth when it doesn't look like he's bringing the rear around too aggressively. So he could potentially be running more of a neutral brake balance. Or the GT in general, you do tend to see +5, which is as far rearwards as it goes. That was your little Mark Larkham tech talk there. Don't say we don't pay for anything cool ever at RaceOnOz, because that was a little bit of technical insight there for those who might not be aware of just how in-depth the brake balance system is in Gran Turismo. Yeah, very proud of that. Selraff here, still hanging on to the GT4 podium. That orange and black Porsche livery. Redline oil on the bonnet, Selby on the front bumper, of course. A very proud supporter of RaceOnOz for a long time now. I've been here over 10 years. They've been a supporter as long as I've been here, I believe. Maybe just as long. Let's go back to the archives and understand exactly when Selby jumped on board with us. In a very strong, very successful partnership. Of course, Selby, one of our title sponsors, alongside Gamesman, who are Australia's oldest independent video game retailer, believe it or not. So the Gamesman, who are right on cue, plastered all over Steve Goof's car, who I haven't mentioned actually is, of course, the Gamesman Racing team captain. So it's team captain versus team captain in 9th and 10th. So Selby versus the Gamesman. These guys, of course, two very proud captains, love the RaceOnOz community, and have been amongst it for a very long time now. Of course, we all come here just for a bit of sim racing, bit of fun, but it always ends up being more than that, doesn't it? I'll tell you right now, one of the best pieces of advice you will ever take is don't talk to strangers online, because I can tell you every single one of us eventually had to take a leap of faith, had to talk to a stranger online, and look where it brought us, to some very cool racing online. Man, that Ferrari sounds good. As Nat here having another experience lapping GT4 traffic. Just want to keep an eye actually on how she manages this, as Kiwi kart racer now into the pits from P5 and comes out on the medium tyre. So that answers that for him. That's his strategy, probably done and dusted. As we just watch here as Social Shocker runs a little bit wide through the penultimate corner and a little bit wide again through the final corner, as Natalie's able here just to sweep around the outside as we get that nice panning camera shot under the podium area. And you can see in the background there actually it's Average Dad, who is coming through and about to lap the first GT3 car in his tenure of the lead. That'll be something I'm sure he takes as a notch in the belt. Probably not had that experience before. Average Dad, not totally familiar with his full sim racing archive of results and experiences. I think it would be weird if I was. But, you know, someone who's clearly tried to make his home at RaceOnOz as of late, sporting the 33, which of course, very synonymous with Max Verstappen more than lately. Something that Max is actually stepping away from apparently, so moving to the number 3 of course, was Daniel Ricciardo's number. Max Verstappen saying that he wants it more. So I'm not sure Daniel Ricciardo is really going to fight that one all that much, given he's probably done with F1. But it will actually be a bit of a shame not seeing MV33 on the grid any longer, nor MV1, of course, which we got used to seeing. I think is probably safe to say. Average dad now 14 seconds ahead of Muzzy. Still a Ferrari 1-2, and 12 laps to go now in the Abu Dhabi 90-minute enduro. Of course, this is probably a little bit longer than 90 minutes. In fact, 47 lap counted race. The first one, a manual formation lap. So these guys actually ran a double file manual race start. One of the only series of its kind that actually does these race starts in Australia, at least. So we do a full formation lap with both classes and go racing on the main straight the next time by. Something that's a little bit of a gimmick to some, but just adds to the imitation aspects of the imitation games to a lot of others. And Muzzy's run a pretty clean race, actually, just keeping the scratches off that Monster Energy 296 GT3. I haven't given this car enough props, actually. It's a very cool looking machine. I love the inverse red chrome of the Monster Energy. It's very sweet, actually. I almost wonder what it would have looked like in green. Of course, Monster Energy's standard colour, something they usually run. Very good look indeed, as Natalie in the pits as well drops behind Muzzy. And Pubs actually calling it short. So this is something we didn't expect to see, as SR Pubs pulls into pit lane. So on the medium tyre, not enough fuel to go the distance, actually. So Pubs probably saw this coming himself and maybe going for the hard, medium, soft. See just how much fuel goes into this M6 GT3. He's stationary what'll feel like an eternity as everyone around him catches him, pulls out of his box now and down pit lane under this awesome and unique pit lane exit. Of course, we've got this dolly shot around the front of the car. That is one stunning looking M6 GT3. There he goes on the gas. And JC Blaze not far behind him, actually, on mediums. And I think it's the mediums as well for SR Pubs, who does actually choose to go safe, but cops a 3-second penalty. Oh, that's going to lose him track position. That is certainly going to lose him track position, and the battle for the podium has just been reignited once again as SR Pubs, going for the safety pit stop, wanted to make sure he had the tyre life underneath him, cops a 3-second penalty for cutting a pit line somewhere. Not sure whether it was pit entry or pit exit, but that is a costly penalty for the man making his return to sim racing. And JC Blaze is going to be seeing that above his car, licking his lips in the BRZ GT300. Of course, a different spec car to any other GT3 car in this category, built to the GT300 series regulation. Super GT over in Japan, running a slightly different rule set, but GT3 still eligible to run in GT300. Haven't seen actually any GT300 cars yet to take on the world. Something I'd be very interested in seeing. And there it was, Pubs serving that penalty and dropping now into P4. He's got the tyre life advantage, so not all over Red Rover, but JC Blaze advantage now with 11 laps to go. I'll tell you what, Kiwi kart racer will absolutely be ruining getting caught up in all of those incidents. So many spins on the exit, in particular of turn 4. That tight hairpin that leads onto the back straight, of course, has actually opened up. The radius has lessened a little bit compared to what it used to be. Track changes to the Yas Marina Circuit in 2021 brought about a very radical change. Of course, this first sector really sped up. We removed the chicane going into turn 4, effectively taking out 2 corners altogether. And probably created an overtaking area in doing so. And then as well at the end of that back straight, not sure who's going in there. Let's see if I can pick it as we flick through cars desperately. And we find the leader, Average Dad, who is going through that other part of the change sector. Of course, this was an awkward chicane actually at the end of this long straight that went into another left-hander. It wasn't a very flowing section. Yeah, not my favourite bit of track in the world, it must be said. But a bit of track nonetheless. check in here with these two. Must apologise, I was just trying to get an eyelash out of my mouth. I hope that made you all feel uncomfortable with potentially having hairs in your mouth, because it is just an annoying experience that I did not want to have to deal with just then. So I sat there watching that BRZ GT300 trying to pluck a hair out of my mouth. I bet you couldn't go through the rest of your night without knowing that fact. O is right, Snorksel. O is right. And you know what? Don't get jealous, because you can't have any. And that's surely what Blaze is saying right now to Pubs as he slams the door on him and runs it in very nicely indeed. Pulls it up. That BRZ GT300, very good on the brakes. The M6 GT3, equally as good actually. Both very, very good cars under brakes. But Pubs is lit up now. He shouldn't have lost that position. I'm sure he feels a little bit silly about copping that penalty at either pit entry or pit exit. But he's got a very nice tyre life advantage, and Blaze doesn't want to give him any slipstream. He's being erratic now. He's being very forceful where he wants to put his car. Pubs using more of the circuit than Blaze. That was a little bit of a better exit there from the M6. This is a great view to watch a battle from. Just watch all the lines of Blaze, all the track they need to use, and the flow. Blaze going defensive very early to be defensive, as Pubs using all the track once again. Blaze potentially unsighted. It's very difficult to pick your braking marker when you're that far inside, but very doable. As Pubs now with the run down the back straight as we go back external. And this M6 has definitely got the legs in the top speed department. Does Blade go defensive? He does not actually. He's left it too late. Left the door open for Pubs, who doesn't bomb it in all the way. He's just a little bit more patient than that. Didn't want to do it all the way to him, as Brit's there pitting from P2. So Brit's not going to hold on to P2 either in GT4. And it's a question of who does want it, as Selraf inherits that position. And is there going to be an inheritance of P3? I wonder, is there going to be lap traffic here in the way? Is this going to be the Schumacher-Montoya moment? I think not. As Blaze and Pubs here down the inside of Blunty, who very, very graciously steps out of the way of these two guys. Didn't need to do it as forcefully as that. Was very kind in where he positioned his car. As these two guys have just got to settle now through this third sector. Not a lot of room to make a move, nor any room to try and get a run on your opponent, as Blaze there running out wide. He's got to be careful. He's made a mistake there as well this race. And it's very much been a case of these guys just being a little bit trigger happy on the power. In fact, I think the only GT3 cars that haven't had an issue on the power tonight are the two in front, Average Dad and Muzzy, who do lead the way in a Ferrari 1-2. Still very close here at the front. Battle for the podium raging between JC Blaze and SR Pubs. As Steve Goof actually just taking over P2 in GT4 from Selraf, who I think actually has a tyre life advantage, albeit a very slim one. Selraf on the hard tyre, probably taking it all the way. Surely these racing hard tyres, Michelin's on the Porsche, surely they can make it all the way to the end. And it should be about 15 minutes to go now in this race. And any pit stops from here out, you've got to assume anyone pitting now going onto the soft tyre wouldn't waste their time in a medium and a hard. That is lost time for everyone. But Steve Goof now on that medium tyre, extending the lead even more. And I think I just saw Pubs and Blaze trading positions once again. These two can't separate them with a crowbar. A greased up crowbar, and I'm not sure why it needs to be greased up, as Pubs now trying to find a gap. Hasn't been able to do it thus far, but definitely has a run now. Round the outside, Blaze. How is he going to stay defensive? How's he going to make it work? As Pubs, does he have it all done? Is it wrapped up? Blaze goes very deep. He's arguing the point, and Pubs round the outside. That's the dirty side of the track. And Blaze just puts the shoulders out there, both into each other, and Pubs wants none of it. Both fighting tooth and nail. Pubs trying to scout round the outside now. This awesome cinematic drone shot underneath the hotel as Pubs opens up the steering, looking for the run now into the third last corner. Of course, Latifi corner, as it has been so commonly called by many an F1 fan across the world. Known, of course, for Nicholas Latifi's accident in the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that sparked a huge title battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Well, you know what? These two aren't Max Verstappen. They're not Lewis Hamilton. They're JC Blaze and SR Pubs, and they're fighting for P3 in the RaceOnOz Imitation Games GT World Challenge for P3. As here we go, swinging it in. JC Blaze leaving nothing on the table there on the inside of turn 2, wanting to use all the track, but Pubs just shuffling himself a little bit wide, didn't get the run he wanted. Usually he's able to find a bit more on the Subaru coming down into this corner, but Blaze doesn't go defensive. He nails the braking and actually pulls a little bit of a gap on him in the middle of that corner. So Blaze getting it right this time, not giving any advantage to the big Beamer behind him, and using all that slipstream from Lapo, ducks out very late, and Pubs now in the tow. That big Beamer very, very good in the tow. Blaze goes defensive. Pubs looking for a way past him. Don't think he's quite got it in him to hang around the outside there. Very, very risky in the middle of a chicane to get it done there. These two, this is an awesome battle right now. Very, very enjoyable battle. Got slightly fresher tyres on the car of SR Pubs. But right now, it's not a matter of tyre life or car performance. Who wants it more? Who wants this podium in the opening round of the series? These guys are fighting for some points. There are class points on offer between these guys. Of course, gold, silver, and bronze points all on offer for these guys. Right now, Average Dad would sweep it for the bronze class with Muzzy, Blaze, and Pubs all in the bronze class as well. All of these guys, bronze class drivers. It's been a very, very convincing display thus far from Average Dad out in the front. But I want to know, ladies and gentlemen, who's your pick right now? Who's going to take P3? Is it going to be SR Pubs, the man on his return to sim racing? Or is it going to be JC Blaze for his first podium in RaceOnOz history? You'll have to do a fact check on that one. Actually, I'm not exactly sure whether or not he's got a podium with RaceOnOz yet. I think this will be his first. But you know what, whether it's your first, your 30th, or your last, you'll just want it. You absolutely want these podiums, whether it's a community event, Sunday League, or the Motorsport Australia Championships. These matter, these podiums. They absolutely push you on in your sim racing career. I do remember some of my early podiums and solid results in RaceOnOz when I was getting podiums in those community events. Running in the State of Origin series on GT6 all those years ago as a teenager, and absolutely loving it. And these guys loving this battle right now. Pubs now looking for a way past the Subaru. He's tried here a few times already. And Blaze still very solid on the brakes. Takes that track position. He's not giving the Beamer a look in, but we know the Beamer's better in a straight line. We know he's got the legs, and he's set himself up once again. Look at that. 4 tenths coming down. Under 4 tenths now. 3 tenths already. The BRZ struggling out of the corners. The big Beamer, all the grunt under the bonnet. Is he going to get it done? Round the outside comes Pubs. He's tried this once again already, but the tyre life isn't enough. Of course, that BRZ, unreal in the corners. Lots of grip in that GT300 car. And you can see already how it's working against Pubs, how it's moving around every single lap. As I think Blaze there running slightly wide in the braking zone. There he was on the curb. That could be dirty tyres for JC Blaze. I beg your pardon. But both these guys are locked in right now. There's not even any thoughts about how to attack, how to defend. It is a flow state of driving. These guys on top of each other, trying to get this podium, trying to lock it in for the first race of the season, the first RaceOnOz event of 2026. Only 3 guys who can stand on the podium tonight for GT3. Average Dad and Muzzy, surely 2 of them. We'll check in with them quickly. Muzzy here, 40 seconds off. Average Dad running his own race out here, has nailed the strategy with the 1 stop and is miles ahead of the nearest compatriot in Muzzy. Ferrari 1-2, but it's Subaru BRZ versus BMW M6 right now for P3. And there are levels to this, ladies and gentlemen. There are levels to how these guys get it done. How do you want to attack? How do you want to defend? Fairly is, I think, the only good answer, if you ask me. As these guys, once again, this has been the problem area. This has been the one where JC Blaze comes under a lot of threat, and Pubs, he looks closer, but he's just no deeper on the brakes. He has been, but he did go a little bit deeper late on there. Just trying to probe it, just wants to see if there's anything else he can find in here. And oh, he's close, he's very close this time by, and Blaze had to shut the door on him because the run wasn't good enough. Oh, there's a half-second penalty there though for Pubs. Oh, this could mean everything for Pubs. Oh, he's got to be sure that he can make it up, because that half-second is going to take him back no matter what happens. He could pass him right now, and surely if Blaze stays close enough, he'd lose that position next lap. Just another change in the fairy tale to what we're expecting. And SR Pubs now with all of the pressure to get it done. Of course, no pressure on the attacker, but surely it's just building now. The frustration of being stuck behind the little BRZ. I mean, where else in the world would you see a Subaru BRZ holding up a BMW M6? I'm not exactly sure, Krondorf, to be honest. It was pretty close. If there was a touch, it could be something that stewards look at after the race. Of course, post-race penalties are a thing in this category. So these guys can put in a request for investigation, as Blaze there very squirrely on the power, and Pubs all over him. You know what? If I'm Pubs, I am throwing it down at this hairpin. You've got to make a move. You've got to try and make sure that if you're going to drop half second behind, you're minimising the time. He's close. He is gaining. He's close, but once again going for the outside. Oh, you've almost got to wonder at this point, does Pubs just lunge it down the inside? There's a lot of room down there. Blaze is being very, very fair, and I think he's got the room. I really do think he can go down the inside. Not that early though, as Blaze, with the lights are blazing, still holding the inside. Pubs there takes third in a straight line, but Blaze deep on the brakes, doesn't want to let it go, and bombs it in with the BRZ. There might have been a bit of contact there, but it doesn't matter anyway, because Pubs, he might get the over-under, but he's going to lose this position no matter what. Doesn't quite step ahead, does just step ahead of Blaze. And I got a little bit confused with the leaderboard there, not sure what happened. But there he does, drop back with that penalty, and there's the frustration, because he was so close. He'd built up on him lap on lap. And there he goes, just opens up that cap once again. Blaze surviving in P3. You've got to remember, this isn't even the fight for the win. These guys are going at it hammer and tong, but Blaze here, oh, that's really awkward, and Blaze runs deep. Really awkward time for GT4 traffic, and Brits is caught out. And Blaze is caught out, and Pubs is caught out. They're all caught out here. Blaze runs deep, and Pubs coming through. He's going to lose minimal time now on the Subaru. And it's oh so close right now. It is so close. I can't pick it. There are 4 laps remaining in this race. 4 laps, 8 minutes, give or take. And we could have actually taken a few laps off this one compared to the Div 1 race. These guys are driving right now. They are giving it everything. And you can hear that turbo flutter of the M6 GT3 as Blaze there running deep once again. The front tyres starting to scream in that STI, and Blaze just running slightly deep again. Actually opens the door for Pubs more than anything. You've got to be careful not to run too defensive, because I think he's inviting Pubs to the challenge. He's just bringing him in, asking him, come and fight me. Make this a battle. Make people watch this and have a fun time as Pubs now. The same charge in the straight. Round the outside, he gets it done. He's over and out already as Blaze late ducks out of the slipstream, bombs it in, and Blaze there has actually taken Pubs off track, and that's going to be something that he's going to have to redress. And Pubs actually, I think, just makes sure that there's a redress. Blaze, though, does cooperate with that. I think he respected that that was probably a little bit too much too late. And I think that valiant defense of P3 has finally come to an end as SR Pubs takes third. But it is at the end of the tail, because these guys have been locked together for a very long time. We're going to watch that move one more time. It was Pubs round the outside, the straight line power of that M6. The BRZ bombed it in, but just bombed it in far too hard. And he had to back out of it, had to let Pubs go. There was still some more contact at the apex of the second corner. But I feel like that was probably a little bit of the turning circle that these guys share. And Pubs now with that fresher tyre, you got to think he's going to move away. You have to assume that he's going to put the head down now and move away from this BRZ. Man, that was a tasty battle. Very, very tasty battle. And if that's the end of that, then that would be a very nice way for these guys to end the night. Of course, 3 laps to go in this one. And we've spent all this time looking at 3rd and 4th. I've forgotten there's more people on track. There's Kiwi Kart Racer still out there. He's still in P5. Could have been a much better night for Kiwi Kart Racer had he not made a few mistakes. He's got the pace of the other cars up ahead. Could have been in any one of those positions up higher. And actually does cop a half-second penalty for running wide at turn 1. A little bit harsh, actually. Doesn't gain you any time whatsoever, given the AstroTurf out there. Very slippery, very, very hard to put the power down. Look at that time, actually, last time out from Nat. She's figured something out here. Yeah, 59.2 last time by. Up on a previous time. She's absolutely figured something out here. So Natalie really coming into her own now late in the race. It's a bit of a shame that she's so far back from Kiwi Kart Racer because she's looking way more comfortable now than she was before. Maybe someone to watch out for next time in the next race. Of course, next one that we have is the Daytona 24-hour shuffled down into 90 minutes. That's a Group 1, Group 3 multi-class race. Of course, multi-class with its limitations, but we do it anyway. We have the fun. And it should be a very fun night under the lights of Daytona on Australia Day of all times as well. Krondorf, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one, to be honest. A lot of these track limits at Abu Dhabi in particular are a little bit laxed at the moment. And as Savage Ducks just said there's some very dubious spots that just don't police it quite as well as what it probably should be done. But we'll move on from that. I don't want to take away from the job that any one of these drivers has done so far tonight. These 12 gentlemen, 12 gentlemen and lady as well, I should say. My apologies. I don't really have this opportunity very often. Yeah, done a very, very commendable job. None so less than Lagoon J, who is 43 seconds ahead of Steve Goof in the GT4 class. In the Genesis GT4, first ever RaceOnOz event. And absolutely flying through. Krondorf, that would be a pretty substantial difference compared to F1, but that's not even just a Gran Turismo difference. That would be a GT racing difference in general, because even GT3 in general, if you watch it in real life for the GT World Challenge, Bathurst 12-hour, Daytona 24-hour, track limits usually go a little bit past the white line. They like to use the curbs in GT cars, which is something I'm actually quite a big fan of. But I understand F1 cars obviously a little bit more temperamental. Don't really want to be taking them out over curbs all that much, especially with the saying that if there is track there, they will use it. So for GT cars, we let them use it. Something I'm always very happy to let these guys do. And I'll tell you what, this has not really opened up much. Steve Goof to Selraf, so the battle for P2 in GT4 still raging. Big run to the Aston, not really enough to pull him ahead of the little Porsche. Still doing very well in P3. Steve Goof versus Josh Farley, otherwise known as Selraf here, P2 and P3. Just over a second separating these guys, worth keeping an eye on. But nothing happening just yet. And a modest 13 seconds back to Brits, who has had the pace all race actually. And that's a good eye actually, Krondorf. New fastest lap alert for Muzzy with a 56.2. He is absolutely flying right now. And he has actually pitted for the soft tyre at some point. So Muzzy on his final lap. And so too is Average Dad. It's time to give this man a little bit of props and a little bit of congratulations for the work he's done this race. It's just been absolutely scintillating. I mean, this man, I think he's listed in Div 4 for the coming Sunday League season. He's not really done that much with RaceOnOz. We don't really know his history. We don't know his background, but we do know he has pulled a blinder tonight. 32 seconds to the good over Muzzy. with a gorgeous one-stop strategy. Tell you what, Average Dad in my DMs all week trying to figure out what time should I be running, what strategy should I be doing, asking the important questions, and you know what, they've all paid off, because lucky Denver Mint, Average Dad comes across the line and wins round 1 of the RaceOnOz Imitation Games GT World Challenge. A very, very convincing victory, to say the least, as we'll keep an eye on where our GT4 leader is. Don't want to miss out on congratulating him, but it's going to be Muzzy next across the line, the man who stole the fastest lap actually late on, and that is worth a point, mind you. GT World Challenge races do give you a point for fastest lap, so there'll be a little bit of a quick reward in that one for Muzzy, who brings the Ferrari across, completes a Ferrari 1-2, and takes P2 in the 90-minute enduro. As we'll turn eyes now to our GT4 winner. Through the final corner comes Lagoon J, the Kiwi in the Genesis, brings it across the line for P1 in GT4. A dominant display over Steve Goof. As we flick here to the man who, on his return to sim racing, he's back, he was in the Navy, he served his country, and now he's serving RaceOnOz in a BMW M6. On the podium is SR Pubs, brings it home for P3 after a stunning battle with JC Blaze. The Subaru BRZ driver brings it home in P4, a very respectable effort there. And rounding out the top 5, it's Kiwi Kart Racer, your favourite Kiwi in the top 5, who brings that Ferrari round for P5. A speedy drive all day for him, but it wasn't his day, as Natalie rounds out our GT3 field. Lagoon, of course, our winner in GT4. Steve Goof brings it across the line and survives for P2 ahead of Josh Farley, your 2 team captains, GRT and Selby in P8 and P9. Second and third in GT4 before we go to P4 in GT4. The last driver across the line for this race, Brits Lightning, 4th position in GT4 in the Lexus RCF GT4. And that brings to an end an awesome hour and a half of racing. A massive congratulations to this man here, Average Dad, who does bring it home, does get it done with a pole position and all the way to the lead. Oh, what a race. What an exciting race. Massive congratulations and props to our 2 race winners, Lagoon J and Average Dad. Those guys, a stunning effort. I think we're going to have to class Lagoon J in silver ahead of rest of the bronzes there, because that was hell of a drive. Maybe even a gold. Absolutely, GG's kind of lonely. I think you'll be in the gold lobby next week, my friend, because you don't deserve to be lonely with that speed. I don't want to be lonely no more. Bit of Rob Thomas to soothe your night. There's your results. Average Dad, Muzzy and Pubs, your GT3 podium. Blaze and Kiwi. They were in the fight for a long time, but just couldn't quite get there in the end. Natalie, Lagoon and Steve, they're 6, 7, 8. Of course, Lagoon and Steve, your first 2 in GT4. Before we go to our further GT4 results with Selraf, Brits, Lupo, Blunty, and Caledon and Blambo, unfortunately, didn't make the finish. But an awesome race run by all. I want to thank everybody, of course. If you do watch this back, I want to have a massive props to everyone for being a part of what was actually the first ever 2-room imitation games. So this is the first time ever that this has happened, and awesome to have enough interest to run 2 rooms of the imitation games. And yeah, very, very successful on both fronts. Hope Route 1 has gone well. Of course, Room 2, an awesome finish. That will round it out from me. I want to thank you guys for coming in and chatting, keeping me sane throughout the race. That was a tough one to call solo. The throat is killing me. Hatchie, Krondorf, Snorksel, Savage Duck, Ben, I think there was someone earlier on as well. Maybe not. Thank you all very much for dropping in. It's much appreciated. Obviously, just doing it for fun on the YouTube channel. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Hopefully I get to stream these again. Have a lot of fun doing it. Enjoy the racing. And I'll see you all next time. Cheers. Bye.